Welcome to Bulls, Bears, and Bill, a weekly Dalton community television program on the financial markets. Brought to you by Bill Schmick, founder of Onota Partners, and me, Rachel Branch, co host. And when Bill says financial markets, he means all of them. On each program, we will continue to share with you, our audience, why the markets did what they did and where they are going in the weeks and months ahead. Bill writes 2 columns weekly for several media and newspaper organizations throughout the country. The substance of Bulls, Bears, and Bill. And we shall begin with a viewer's comment. Quote, "I just found your podcast. It's great. I'll talk it up with my friends. Cheers." Thank you, Howard. And then a viewer's question. Bill, have you seen a couple of financial advisors warning about a possible 40% decline in the dollar, which could impact all accounts valued in dollars? They are urging moving to gold and other precious metals. I know you are bullish on gold. Do you think it could be as bad as they say? Thank you. And you can email your questions to
DaltonCTV@gmail.com. Again, it is DaltonCTV@gmail.com. And I'm waiting to answer your questions, just like this one from Howard. Well, on gold, yes, you're right. I've been bullish on gold for well over a year, more than almost 2 years, and silver. And I'm also bullish on platinum and palladium as well as most other commodities. The question of a 40% decline in the US dollar from here, well, that would be problematic for America overall. No question that the dollar is going to continue to decline because the present administration needs the dollar to decline as part of their tariff efforts. You see, I think I've said this before, when you slap tariffs on imported goods that are coming in, it makes the cost of those goods higher to us Americans. At the same time, if you reduce the value of the dollar, our companies, which sell overseas their products and they're denominated in dollars, it becomes cheaper for foreigners to buy our goods. Now, the lower the dollar goes, the cheaper our goods become versus other countries' currencies. And that is part and parcel of President Trump's tariff policies. Now, he won't say that because over the years, over the decades, most politicians have always touted the myth that a strong US dollar is a strong America. But that's so far from reality, I can't tell you how far it is. So, as far as the dollar's decline, it will continue, yes. There will be periods, I think there's one coming up, where the dollar will get to a certain level and then it'll bounce back up and then it'll stair step down again. 40% from here would indicate to me a real crisis in the United States, something that goes far beyond anything Trump might want to do on the tariff side. A 40% decline from here would indicate that other countries would view the United States as collapsing or almost collapsing. Now, let's switch to gold in this modern right now, this modern times. Gold has been going up because the dollar has been going down, yes, and also because, as I've said before, gold does better in what I'd call a stagflationary environment. high inflation or higher inflation and a slower economy. And that's exactly what we have. And I think that shall continue at least through the end of the year. Now, would I buy gold today? Well, last I looked, and today's Monday, gold was just about kissing $4,000 an ounce. And silver was above 40 some dollars. Now, my target on a short term basis was that right here, $4,000 an ounce in gold, and maybe as high as $50 an ounce on silver, which we haven't reached yet. But I would say to you to hold off on any purchase of gold in the time being, in the very, very short term. Because what I think will happen is there will be a digestion a period ahead. Maybe it's October, maybe it's November, I'm not sure which. Have some patience. You'll see gold, I believe, decline. And it won't have much to do with what the dollar's doing or interest rates or the economy. It will simply be, as I said, it's gone up and it's gone up and it's gone up and it's now in the stratospheric levels. So normally what will happen is there will be a pullback. It will consolidate, catch its breath for the next move up. So I think you're right on as far as looking at gold. I'm not saying it's gold and nothing else. As I've told you, I'm bullish right now on all commodities. Okay, and I will be continuing to be bullish into probably November, December. I'm watching now, platinum, for example, is out pacing gold and silver. And you can buy platinum, or there's an exchange traded fund for platinum. There's one for palladium as well as for gold and silver. So you don't have to run out and buy quantities of platinum.
Is there a difference between white gold and yellow gold?
Well, there you go. White gold is platinum.
Oh,
Okay.
I should know that.
Now, why platinum? What's going on with platinum? And, why is it moving? Well, it's moving for two reasons. Platinum can be used in industrial metal, okay? So it can be used in a lot of high-tech things, a lot of autos, things like that as parts and materials in the production of these areas. And at the same time, this started with the Chinese, gold has gotten so expensive in the sense of jewelry that the Chinese and now other countries, are buying platinum jewelry because it's cheaper than gold. So I think those are the two main engines that are moving the price of platinum as we speak. So it was up again today. Both gold and silver and platinum and palladium were all up as I left the market just now. So I think you've got legs on the platinum and the palladium that is better right now than the gold and the silver. But as I said, we're really approaching a period where I wouldn't be putting fresh capital into gold and silver. I would keep what I have, and you'll just have to endure whatever pullback occurs. And I have to tell you that given the rocket ship advance of gold and silver, the pullback that we would probably get would be pretty steep. And people normally would panic and sell. I wouldn't. I would just buy more once it got to a point at a level where I felt that it was discounting, all the pullback. And if you'll pay attention to us, I will tell you that on the air when that occurs.
So you can cost average if you buy it way down.
Yes.
A little lighthearted. I want to know, are you stacking up gold bars in your basement?
No.
What do they do? Give you a certificate? I mean, how do you prove that you have?
Yes, they give you a certificate. I would stay away from any kind of physical gold. It's expensive. It's a pain in the butt to hold. And as you said, there's a certificate, which you're probably never going to cash in. And this is an example. A lot of gold bugs, of which I'm not, although I've been in just about every large gold mine in my career, all the way down to the stoops in every country that actually produces gold or silver or copper. I have a background in commodities, but one of the things that gold bugs will tell you is that, oh, Armageddon is coming. So cash in everything you have and buy gold, solid gold, and keep it. And therefore, you'll not only survive the bad times ahead, but you'll have gold to barter. If we ever got to that point in time where society collapsed, in what they're arguing, and you did have gold, believe me, society collapsed, there's no police, there's no fire department, and you go and you take your lump of gold down to buy a case of beans, okay? And guess what happens? As soon as you pull out that gold, everybody is going to attack you and take the gold away from you. There's no police, there's no security. So that's a fallacy. If society does collapse in that sense, it's the survival of the fittest, the strongest rule, and your gold hoard would be taken away from you fairly quickly.
You want to start a garden with your neighbors, I would
Yes.
think. Okay. Here's our question. Why is the stock market going up? Wouldn't you think it would go down or decline because of the shutdown?
More buyers than sellers would be my first answer. But the real reason is that government shutdowns have been followed by government reopenings 100% of the time. And this will be no different. And we've had enough shutdowns in the last several years that Wall Street has become inured to the political circus that we have in Washington over shutdowns. So in this case, they are looking beyond the shutdowns, because what normally happens after a shutdown, no matter what it is that the politicians are arguing about, and whoever gets what in order to reopen government, all of that's reversed, okay, very quickly. And so investors at this point in time are looking at the long term when it comes to shutdowns, and they're kind of ignoring it. Now, there have been times when a shutdown, if it was prolonged, that the markets will start to get nervous, because what would happen is, without the government, there's a slowdown over time in the economy, and people aren't getting paid and so forth. And so at some point, I think that investors might start to pay attention. But the way it stands right now is, when I've looked at Polymarket, which is the betting, it's a betting site, and the most popular betting site in the world. And the target date was October the 15th. That was the estimation for when the politicians would agree to compromise in some shape, way, or form. And why October the 15th? Well, that's the next paycheck for the military. So whether it be Democrats or Republicans or all of them, when you get to that point where the military is getting paid, things get a little bit more dicey. Okay, and the other thing is, if we look back to the last shutdown of any length, the longest shutdown we have ever had was in 2018 under the first administration of Donald Trump, and that lasted 34 days. Now, there were other things that were happening in the market during that time, and the market had already been declining for other reasons. But from the shutdown to the reopening, I think the stock market lost 10%, maybe 12%, something like that. But that was not totally due to the shutdown. However, it was the longest in history, and what was starting to happen, for example, is air traffic controllers, critical to airlines, critical to flying, critical to transportation, they were not getting paid. And by the time the 34th day or the 30th day arrived, they were calling in sick. They weren't showing up to work. So the same thing could possibly happen throughout the country in areas that are open and have to continue to work without pay until the government employees decided that they weren't going to do this anymore. Okay, so that could happen if this shutdown continues. Now, at the moment, Congress, the House of Representatives, at least the Republicans in the House of Representatives, are not showing up. In fact, there is no sessions this whole week for the House. The Senate is showing up, and I understand tonight, once again, both sides are going to vote on the continuing resolution to keep the government open until November. Last I looked, neither Republicans or Democrats are going to be willing to do anything more but vote the same way they have. Now, three Democrats have joined the Republicans so far. But the Republicans still do not have the 60 votes that's needed in order to pass the continuing resolution. There are 5 what we call moderate Democrats that the Republicans, ignoring the rest of the Democratic Party, are focusing on those 5 and trying to come to an agreement with them that, the gist of what they're saying is, if you vote for the continuing resolution along with us right now, we promise you that we will discuss all of the health care issues that you Democrats want to discuss, which is an extension of the Obamacare premium discounts, as well as foregoing the cuts in Medicaid that are scheduled to start in 2026. The problem is that trust between the two parties is at historical lows. The Democrats do not believe anything the Republicans are saying, and I understand why. It's that since the Trump administration came in, Republicans have said things to the Democrats in order to get their votes, and they have not fulfilled any of their promises. So the trust is zero. But the Republicans are also not in any way, shape, or form trusting any of what the Democrats say. So I think it's going to need something outside, like the military on October the 15th, or maybe something with the air traffic controllers again, whatever it's going to take. Now, it's interesting when I think back on 2018, when Trump basically was responsible for the shutdown. It was because he was demanding, I think it was $5 billion for the construction of the wall between Mexico and the United States. He never got it, okay, and I think overall for his first administration, no more than 20 or 25 miles was ever built. And if we all notice that he's not said and mentioned a word about this wall this time around. So the point is that shutdown, which hurt a lot of Americans, was basically for nothing. So I believe the same thing will happen now, and I believe that's why the investors are looking beyond it.
Oh, the thing I would add is I think the issues on the table are a catch-22.
Yeah, they are.
Really, it makes it very hard when you go after people's health care and everyday real needs. So
Well,
this is a terrible conundrum.
but the thing is that most people will continue to support, in a partisan fashion, their side.
Yep.
And why is that going to happen? Because let's face it, Obamacare premiums are not going to change until the end of the year. People won't get hurt until the end of the year. The Medicaid cuts are not even going to happen until the next midterm elections. The way people in America function, well, I still have Medicaid. Let's see what happens. So in the meantime, the Trump supporters will continue to support Republicans, and the Democrats and the independents will shake their head and just say,
Well, next question. Has Trump changed his tariff strategy? There seems to be a number of new tariffs in the works. The focus seems to be on individual products rather than across the board country tariffs.
yes, reciprocal tariffs. If you recall, in April, Donald Trump came out with a huge number of reciprocal tariffs. He declared this an emergency and that he was going to authorize these tariff increases, so some of which were 50, 60%. He had a whole list of countries and so forth, because it was an economic emergency. And so he used Emergency Powers Act to implement those reciprocal tariffs with some success, with some failures and so forth. And what's happened is that the federal courts have said they're illegal. And so what's happened is it's come all the way to the Supreme Court. And actually next month, I think the Supreme Court is going to rule whether or not those reciprocal tariffs are legitimate or not, or lawful. And what has happened in the meantime is that Donald Trump's administration has developed a plan B, which says what happens if all these reciprocal tariffs are thrown out the door. Well, we have to go and implement tariffs based on the traditional, legal, legislative way tariffs have been instituted in America. And Congress has several laws on the books that you go through in order to levy tariffs. But they're mostly on products and sectors as opposed to countries overall, meaning no, 50% tariffs on everything in the country becomes maybe a 50% tariff on pharmaceuticals, or a 25% tariff on palladium, or 50% tariff on coffee, or whatever. Now, investigations have to occur before this legislation can be passed. So if you'll notice that over the last 2 weeks, there's been just an avalanche of announced investigations on a myriad number of products and also sectors. So, including movies, if you've noticed. These investigations are going to be fast-tracked because who's going to do the investigating? The Trump administration. So you can bet your boopy that those investigations are going to be deemed that these are dangerous to America. These, this product imports are dangerous, this, and this. And with those investigations done, then the Trump administration can present that to the legislators and basically ask them to put tariffs on this sector or that product, on and on. Now, the reason this is happening in such, it's been so fast that you can't keep up with it is because Donald Trump needs this done before the midterms. If it isn't done before the midterms, then he thinks he's got a problem reelecting Republicans. And the Republicans will, we think the Republicans will accept this. Although, here's the thing about that. This is the dicey part of it. Well, first of all, if the Supreme Court says the reciprocal tariffs that you've levied are fine, you're legally allowed to do it, no problem. Okay. If, on the other hand, that they say illegal, you have to go through the regular way of doing it, which he's doing, the problem becomes that a lot of Republican congressmen and senators are in states that are going to be hit badly by these tariffs, okay, that he's investigating. As an example, for example, right now, soybean farmers in the United States are getting decimated because China is no longer importing soybeans from the United States. Now, this started back in the first Trump administration, and at one point in the past, we basically exported most of our soybean crop to the Chinese. Now, almost nothing goes to the Chinese, and that's decimated farmers. During the first administration, Trump, I think, actually levied $20 to $30 billion for relief for farmers, and now he's thinking of doing that again. Well, that's great, but what about the rest of us, the people who are paying for the tariffs? Where's my relief? Where's my 20 or 30 billion? For paying what? For coffee. An example.
And we love our coffee.
Yes, and I just did a column on the crazy price of coffee. Well, give me my money back. You know, Donald Trump, come on. Why just the farmers? What about me? That's the problem. And that's the problem with dipping your fingers in state capitalism.
And how do you undo the damage that's already done, as well as the perception? You know, so here again, I said, another catch-22.
Yeah. So that's what's going on. That's what's going on with the tariff front. As I warned investors and readers countless times, don't think that just because the Supreme Court may, turn down his requests for reciprocal tariffs that he's giving up on the tariff front. He is not. I mean, that's a core part of his administration.
And do you have any projections on how long you believe the shutdown will go on? And, right in line with that, the high price of coffee, which you just brought up, it brings the question of when will we see relief on food prices and other commodities overall. These are connected, I think.
Oh, they are. Unfortunately, even though tariffs are hurting, for example, in my column on coffee, which is the prices are stratospheric, tariffs don't help. But the real problem with coffee or so many other food commodities is climate change. Now, I know that's a controversial subject. I've had readers who've emailed me and told me there is no climate change, so stop even talking about it. And George Gilder, who he and I had an interview a couple of months ago, he's basically, and he's a very smart man, he's an economist in the Reagan administration. He denies there's anything such thing as climate change. I just look out my window and see what climate change is doing to where I live and to what it's doing in the world. So I believe there is climate change, and so do the farmers, even though it's not a public thing that most farmers are saying. But the facts are that with drought and flood and all the rest of the changes in climate,
and fire.
and fire
this, right
and so
in the United
forth.
States.
Yes, or all over the world.
Well, we
It's
know
not
all over
just
the world.
yes. So climate change for me is real, and that's really what's damaging food crops. And as a result of that, I think as time goes by, that we here in America and elsewhere will be paying more and more for less and less food. So, I mean, that's another commodity, by the way, that hasn't really moved yet, and I hope it doesn't. But at some point in the future, I don't know if it's going to be 2 years or 5 years or however long, I expect that food commodities will experience the same sort of increase that gold and silver and other precious metals have experienced this year.
As someone who's been fighting climate catastrophe publicly since 1997, I really think our media outlets have to put this front and center. That's a personal view, if that's okay, on BB&B.
Well, the thing is, just my personal experience, 10 or 15 years ago, when I would complain about climate change or whatever to my neighbors or whatever, the response was, yeah, we have to do something about that. Yes, we have to write our congressman. Yes, we have to do A, B, and C. We have to stop consuming so much X. Today, the same people, when I talk to them about climate change, they'll just shrug their shoulders and say, what are we going to do? It's climate change. And go on about their business. That's, over the last decade or more, that's been a change in attitude that scares me. It says to me that if there is a black swan event for the financial markets, it probably is going to be climate change at some point, but it isn't right now.
And once again, I cannot wait with great anticipation for your upcoming columns this week. I mean, it's just like, this is like the days when you were waiting for the next chapter in the movies of a serial, like, oh, what's going to happen? Is she going
Yes.
to get out and be safe? And,
We live in exciting times and scary times at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And by the way, before we leave, remember, any questions whatsoever, daltonctv@gmail.com. daltonctv@gmail.com. And thank you.